Chapter 6 Closets. On the night of March 11th, 2000, a group of fraternity guys were drunk and angry. They had spent 2 hours watching the Ellen DeGeneres produced lesbian drama If These Walls Could Talk Too, and had not seen any, quote, hot lesbian sex. In a non sequitur that will become typical of Saturday Night Live, one of the frat boys, played by comedian Jimmy Fallon, said he had a genie that could grant him 3 wishes. He used the first 2 wishes on important things, like turning a small beer keg into a larger beer keg, and then decides to make a last wish to make 2 lesbians appear in the room and start making out. He asks that the women be unaware that they are watching. His wish is granted, and 2 women appear on the bed, but they immediately realize something is wrong. Both women are homely looking, wearing heavy flannel clothing and homemade cut-off shorts, and the hair on their legs seems longer than the hair on their heads. The frat starts to complain to the genie, but she explains that the wish cannot be taken back. The lesbians embrace. One lover licks the other lover's face. A frat boy puts his head behind the couch and starts vomiting. Another one starts crying something to the effect of, "These aren't real lesbians." A third shouts, "This thing is giving me a hard off." A few years earlier, Ellen DeGeneres decided that the character she played in her popular ABC sitcom, Ellen, will come out of the closet. In other words, the character, also named Ellen, would reveal she was gay. DeGeneres herself had not publicly discussed her own sexuality, despite rumors that she was a lesbian. Outing her self-named sitcom character would out her in the process. A year before, the Walt Disney Company purchased the American Broadcast Company. Executives at the parent company were against DeGeneres' idea. Once word leaked of the potential episode, ABC affiliates across the Bible Belt said they would not air the show. Longtime advertisers bailed. In the end, ABC executives decided to do the episode. Times have changed, CNN said of the heavily watched episode. ABC lost $1 million in advertising revenue when the 30-something show depicted 2 gay men in bed. 7 years later, the responses for Ellen, they reportedly paid more than $300,000 for each 30-second spot. Time gave DeGeneres the cover. It read, "Yep, I'm gay." One of the most critically noted movies at the time was Bound, a bloody crime caper starring an effeminate, busty character played by Jennifer Tilly and a hard-driving plumber played by Gina Gershon. They were lovers in the film. Several cultural critics wrote about the sexual tension in Thelma and Louise, the Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon movie in which 2 women kill a rapist, but found the lesbian undercurrent symbolic, not literal. Catherine Trammell, Sharon Stone's character in Basic Instinct, kissed her lesbian girlfriend throughout the film, but Trammell herself was a bisexual. Basic Instinct focused on the dynamics between her and the male lead, Michael Douglas. There were only 2 leads in 1996's Bound, lesbians Violet and Corky. Andy and Larry Wachowski, who would later write and direct The Matrix, even hired expert Susie Bright as their on-site sex consultant. Bound is about the lovers' plan to steal $2 million from Violet's mafia boyfriend, Caesar. Corky is an ex-con, a former professional thief, which is why Violet asked for her help. They only know each other from a one-night stand the night before. Corky explains her reservations to Violet. "For me, stealing has always been a lot like sex. 2 people who want the same thing. They get in a room, they talk about it, they start to plan. It's kind of like flirting. It's kind of like foreplay, because the more they talk about it, the wetter they get." Corky gives a sly smile and readjusts in her seat. "The only difference is I can fuck someone I just met. But to steal, I need to know someone like I know myself." Violet coaxes her into getting involved, but the plan goes awry and Caesar catches them, traps them in his bedroom, and ties them up in heavy rope. The mobster points his gun at Corky. He interrogates her on the location of the money. Then he demands to know how she stole his woman. "Everyone knows you can't be trusted. Fucking queers. You make me sick. What did you do to her, huh?" He is practically salivating. "What did you fucking do to her? That's not my Violet." He turns and points the gun at his girlfriend. What did she do to you? Violet looks at him coolly. Everything you couldn't. Caesar leans back, lets out a heavy sigh, and turns his back to them. Caesar has murdered several people to find out where his money is, including a mafia boss. But at this point, he seems ready to give up. The gun may as well have been shooting blanks. Corky had to be the kind of woman who everyone in the theater would be dying to go to bed with, Susie Bright later wrote in her book Mommy's Little Girl. Violet, on the other hand, couldn't be just any straight girl on the drift. She had to be a femme diva, as calculating and as sensual as a cat. In the first scene of 2001's video game Fear Effect 2, Retro Helix, Hannah, a curvy, short-haired brunette, is entering what looks like a pay-by-the-hour motel. The camera zooms in on her behind, taking in her semi-translucent black negligee and white thong panties. She slinks towards the Johns, sitting at the bed's edge. He is blond and buff and wears a childish, ear-to-ear grin. Hannah moves in front of the nameless man and slowly begins to take off her dark nightie. The room dims. Later that evening, Hannah walks into the bathroom, looks down at her lover in the bathtub. He is now dead, his lifeless body bobbing in the bloody water. She noticed that he's wearing the same grin on his face, which makes her smile. She has to ask, so, was it worth dying for? Stanley Liu, creator of the Fear Effect series, was raised in Hong Kong. To make sure he blended in with other boys, his father let him drink beer at age 4 and gave him cigarettes as a teenager. When you take away the taboo of things, it becomes a non-issue, Liu would later say. In 1988, the Chinese government would create the movie rating system, the highest being Sai Chai, or Category 4, equal to an X rating. Liu was in Hong Kong in the late 60s and early 70s, well before the more liberal ratings. He wouldn't see his first porn movie until he was 16, when he came to America. When I was in Hong Kong, there was no such thing as a triple X movie. The law said they couldn't show intercourse or nothing below the waist, something like that. The worst I saw were some breast shots, he said. They were very restrictive, very conservative with sex. He says his viewpoint was further complicated by religious views. My parents were hardcore Buddhists. However, I was sent to a British Catholic school through most of my young adult life. I grew up with this clash of Chinese superstition and Western Catholicism in my head. I remember vividly how we had to burn offerings to our ancestors in July and make Sunday Mass at the same time. Liu attended the Art Center of Southern California to study digital graphic art. After graduating, he did cinematic effects for major video game companies like Origin, the creator of the popular role-playing series Ultima, and Sierra, of Leisure Suit Larry fame. He did not work with the Aloe series. Liu then pooled his resources and started his own game company, Kronos Digital Entertainment. The small boutique developer would make games other publishers would distribute. Japanese publisher Vic Tokai sold its first title, the 3D fighting game Criticom, in late 1995. It followed up with Dark Rift. Dark Rift is a product of Kronos, the same company responsible for the abysmal PlayStation fighter Criticom, the website GameSpot wrote. While Dark Rift isn't a sequel, the lackluster fighting contained on the cart might as well have been culled from the same mythical realm called Criticom 2. On the upside, Dark Rift isn't quite as bad as Criticon. It received a 5 out of 10. Most major reviewers echoed GameSpot's opinions, though some thought the graphics in Dark Rift were impressive. All the while, Liu dreamt of creating an aggressive, gun-happy animated movie similar to the popular Asian action flicks he grew up watching. He was a big fan of John Woo, the Hong Kong director of Hard Boiled, The Killer, and other violent, critically acclaimed action movies. Liu and his business partner, John Soo Patton, talked about paying homage to anime, a Japanese style that usually focused on surreal settings, strong female protagonists, and violent resolutions. One of the most famous was 1988's Akira. Liu's movie would star a group of ruthless Western bounty hunters led by a headstrong femme fatale named Hana. Their exploits would lead them straight into a mythological Chinese hell. The whole concept of hell and life after death was always an interesting philosophical mind twister to me, Lou said in an interview. When I came up with the concept and the backstory for Fear Effect, I was like, therapy. Fear Effect for the Sony PlayStation, the PS1, would balance highly challenging action adventure levels with anime-inspired animated shorts called cutscenes. Lou wanted to blend the player-controlled portions with the cutscenes well enough so that the two would almost be indistinguishable. Previous home games like Tecmo's Ninja Gaiden had an obvious distinction between the interactive and the cinematic. Arcade games like Cinematronics' classic Dragon Lair were smooth, but required expensive hardware to run. We had to make sure that the cinematics and gameplay were seamless, Lou said. I mean, the label interactive movie is a death sentence. The last notable interactive movie was Sega's Night Trap, a 1992 game that used digital footage. It featured several teenage girls having a slumber party discussing boys and other important matters, while vampires, who resemble men with stockings on their heads, quietly hunt down the girls with what looks to be a long drill. Your job is to defend the helpless women. Press a button at the right time would show a vampire being caught in one of the many set traps, while bad timing would show pre-recorded footage of girls being subdued in some angry PG level way. The girls tended to disperse. To do the job right, you have to constantly watch footage of the women from hidden cameras stationed in every room. Night Trap had no nudity, but the panty-raiding voyeurism created a minor controversy. One of the quote-unquote teenagers featured was Dana Plato, the actress who played Kimberly Drummond on the 80s sitcom Different Strokes. That same year, she would star in Bikini Beach Race, a porn with Ron Jeremy. Quality issues aside, Lou realized that home game system technology had advanced since Night Trap. The Sony PS1 used high memory CDs instead of low memory cartridges, which allowed programmers to include visuals less grainy than in Night Trap. Fair Effect could have more storage space to showcase the game world. Developers could also spread the game across multiple CDs, something not possible with cartridges. Cronus determined Fear Effect would span 4 separate discs, one for each of the game's worlds. Also in Cronus's favor was the competitor's title, Resident Evil, Capcom's zombie horror series, which balanced B-movie thrills with action sequences, would eventually sell more than 24 million copies. It even coined a new game genre, survival horror. While not as visually stunning as the game Lou proposed, Resident Evil proved that a great story could be told while still keeping the gameplay style. Kronos talked with potential Fear Effect distributors, including Tomb Raider publisher Eidos. It was an uphill battle. I even had to convince some of our in-house people that the game was viable, Lou said. I remember being in the boardroom after the Eidos presentation of the first game, and afterwards, the president looked me straight in the eye and said, "How much of this is just cool in your head, Stan?" Eidos eventually did give Kronos a deal and released Fear Effect in February 2000. One review read, "From now of nowhere, it seems, comes Kronos, who hasn't made a single game that's worth owning until today. Fear Effect won't knock Resident Evil off the survival horror map, but it takes the Resident Evil formula and prods and pushes it into new shapes and directions like a kid with Play-Doh." One major point of interest was Fear Effect's domineering leader, Hannah. She wore tight, revealing outfits throughout the game. In interviews, Lou was often asked if there was a code you can punch in to play Hannah nude, an understandable question with the rumors that a similar was available for another Eidos game, Tomb Raider. Lou said no. You get to see Hannah in her bare minimum quite a bit throughout the game. For me, it is more interesting to see her in different sexy outfits than it is to see her in her raw, exposed nakedness. We got some very interesting costume design for her next endeavor. Rest assured, there'll be plenty left for the imagination. An unprecedented success, Kronos immediately went to work on a Fear Effect sequel. The team knew it wanted to add more of whatever made the original a hit. More background story, more violence, more sex appeal. Kronos used new graphic techniques to get more visual detail out of the aging PS1 system. It gave the sequel an easier learning curve to make it more accessible than the original, and provided 13 possible endings to the game based on what decisions you made. Hannah also got a lover. Her name was Rain. A lot of subject matters, like homosexuality, are brought up in our game not to shock, piss off, or offend anyone, but to look and talk about it. Video games are a great medium, and now that many game players are grown up adults, to restrict it is such a waste. So Hannah's sexual preference wasn't made to put people into shock, but because it fit her character, Lou said. In one cutscene, the two bounty hunters need to assassinate someone, but first they must distract the building guards to use the secret elevator. After a quick discussion, Hannah grabs her busty blonde companion and starts making out with her in the small shaft. Hannah begins to peel her tight green party dress off, but stops just before getting naked. She wags a free finger at the camera. Sorry, boys, this is private, she says, tossing her dress over the surveillance equipment to block the view. Two male guards are watching in the camera room. Damn, should we kick him out? One asks. No way, the other replies. Maybe the dress will fall off. In an early action sequence, Rain is being taken hostage by a multi-tentacled alien. The monster has stolen Rain's clothes and strapped her into 4-point restraints located in his laboratory. The scene is similar to Jabba the Hutt capturing Princess Leia and dressing her in a metal bikini in Return of the Jedi. In the battle, you use Hannah to fight the alien while Rain wriths and squirms, struggling against the cold metal restraints, wearing nothing more than bra and panties. Originally, we heard a toned-down speech from Eidos because Walmart wouldn't carry Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix if it was too explicit, Lou recalled. I'd say by mid-production, though, we said screw it, and it stayed. We have a little touching and such, but it all fits in the story. Eidos began an extensive Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix print campaign in winter 2000, the same year it started promoting the fourth Tomb Raider game, The Last Revelation. In the 2-page spread, Rain is straddling Hannah, and Hannah is lying on her stomach, reading a magazine called Big Guns. They are both in their underwear. Referring to Fear Effect 2's multiple endings, the caption reads, "No one's surprised the story is capable of 13 climaxes." GamePro magazine refused to run the ad, as did other publications with a younger skewing readership. Eidos provided them with a more acceptable ad. The original ad had no explicit nudity, just light touching and innuendos, but they had a problem with the word climax, Lou said. We have another ad where Hannah and Rain are in regular clothing that says, "These two ladies put the ass in assassin," and that one's okay. Men's magazines like Stuff happily ran the original ad. The hipster sex magazine Nerve profiled the Fear Effect women in a photo spread, guns drawn, along with quotes from Lou about the elevator makeout scene. Playboy.com did an article on the advertising controversy. Eidos provided different Fear Effect 2 ads based on the country. The Italian ad was similar to the American's censored one, with the text, "Don't let us play on our own." The German advertisement had Hannah and Rain partially naked, giving each other a hug as they looked at the reader. Rain is wearing virgin white bra and panties, while Hannah is clad in the same black nightie and white thong she wore in the game's murderous cutscene introduction. The women have guns in their hand. A caption reads, in big brown letters, "Stel der vor, der Hase Uze, und en Pumpgun, und en Verda gun Ash." Roughly, imagine you have an Uzi and a shotgun, and a damned hot ass. Eidos released Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix for the PlayStation 1 in February 2001, a year after the original game. It received excellent ratings. The Tough magazine Next Gen made Fear Effect 2 the featured review of the month, giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Critics said graphically it pushed the Sony PS1 as far as it could go. 3 months earlier, in November 2000, Sony launched the advanced PlayStation 2, or PS2. Kronos began working on Fear Effect 3 Inferno for the new system. The PS2 will allow bigger games because it used DVDs instead of CDs, similar to how CDs were a big leap from cartridges. The first two games raise a lot of questions we plan to wrap up in Part 3, Lou said in a 2001 interview. A lot of technical problems came because the first two games had to be on 4 CDs. So with Fear Effect 3 being on DVD, we hope to not have much constraint. Kronos and Eidos attended the Electronic Entertainment Expo, the largest American video game conference, to show a 2-minute collage of cutscenes from the upcoming game. In one scene, Hannah is running down the hallway of an asylum while being chased by aggressive hospital guards. They trap her in a corner and pull out a needle, presumably filled with medicine that will sedate her. In a panic, Hannah scratches one of the guards, and his whole face falls off, revealing bloody muscles and long fangs. She manages to escape into an elevator, and as she takes a deep breath, the elevator walls begin to ooze blood. The preview showed a level of gore well beyond anything in the first two games. The following year, Fear Effect Inferno was a no-show at the annual gaming conference. Eidos tells the press that the game is on hold at the current time. In short time, Eidos says the project is indefinitely postponed. Stanley Liu and his company Kronos were no longer available for comment. Calls to the offices were answered by a disconnected phone line message. Several sources say that the members of Kronos went their separate ways, and all game-related assets had been destroyed. Eccentric movie director Uwe Boll, best known for his 2003 flop based on Sega's House of the Dead, bought the film rights and TV rights to Fear Effect. Fear Effect is a fantastic game with a dark story, he said in a press release. I want to create an action film in the vein of Charlie's Angels, but portray its sexy heroines, Hannah and Rain, in a much edgier fashion. In 2000, Showtime Cable Channel started Queer as Folk, the first major gay soap opera. Will and Grace, an NBC comedy about a gay man and his straight female friend, was a top 5 primetime hit. MTV launched the gay-focused cable channel Logo. Another new basic cable channel, Bravo, began several gay-friendly shows, including Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, a makeover program where 5 gay men help a hapless straight man improve his couture, grooming, decorating, cooking, and social skills. The so-called Fab Five appeared on the cover of Entertainment Weekly, cut an official single and video for its theme song, All Things Just Keep Getting Better, and perhaps in the biggest pop cultural measurement at the time, were parodied on the satirical cartoon South Park. Showtime launched the lesbian drama The L Word, which became another hit for the network. Unlike most pornographic films and mainstream movies, these programs were not created or written by straight males, but by people intimately familiar with the cultures. Based on the Nielsen ratings and cable data, millions of Americans were watching gay and lesbian-focused shows, letting a previously unknown subculture into their living room as easily as they observed the 4 straight single women on the HBO's popular Sex and the City. By the time Fear Effect 3 was lost in indefinite postponement, websites such as gaygamer.net were representing the gay and lesbian video game community. Players were affectionately called gamers, with a Y. A Nottingham Trent University study at the time found that 50% of male gamers and 68% of female gamers preferred to create game avatars or online personas of the opposite sex. Women to avoid, quote, unsolicited male approaches, and men because they found themselves being treated better by other male players. Just a decade earlier, Nintendo refused to allow Capcom to release its seminal arcade brawler Final Fight on its Super Nintendo system. In the fighting game, you beat up drunk out street urchins, mafia bosses, and crooked cops. You also defend yourself against 2 women, Roxy and Poison. Depending on the version of the game, the 2 sisters have long pink or purple hair, tiny cut-off shorts, and half t-shirts that barely hold their breasts. Handcuffs hang from their shorts. Their tight t-shirts rise when you hit them. According to Game Over, Nintendo's battle to dominate video games, the game company told Capcom abuse against women was against its content policies. Capcom told Nintendo that Roxy and Poison weren't always women. They were transgender. It was released on the Super Nintendo in 1991, sans Roxy and Poison. A rare home port for the Sega CD reportedly has the sisters. Later Capcom games would feature them in less revealing attire. The topic was discussed enough for Street Fighter IV producer Yoshinori Ono to explain Poison's gender years later. In North America, Poison is officially a post-op transsexual, but in Japan, she simply tucks her business away in order to look like a girl. Atari, which now only released games, not systems, published Dungeons & Dragons: The Temple of Elemental Evil. Based on the popular pen and paper games of the 1970s, The Temple of Elemental Evil was a role-playing title geared towards hardcore gamers. At one point in an otherwise straightforward game, you and your merry party of men meet a slave named Bertram. The slave says that if you can defeat his master, he will pay you by marrying a male party member. Beat Bertram's master, and you're treated to a wholesome same-sex marriage ceremony. And Elemental Evil isn't the only place where gamers can find gay romance. Tech journalist Clive Thompson wrote on the website Slate. Players of LucasArts Star Wars discover that while playing a female Jedi, they get hit on by another female Jedi. Later this year, virtual gay wedlock will hit the mainstream when The Sims 2, the long-awaited sequel to the most popular PC game of all time, allows marriages between same-sex Sims. The Sims 2 became the first major American video game to allow gay marriages. The series has always allowed gay couples. There were no press releases, no special The Sims Gay Edition. You just made your sim flirt with someone of the same sex and build a relationship from there. The inclusion of gay relationships in The Sims and other games will reflect the Will and Grace effect, said Wired sex and technology critic Regina Lynn. For the majority of the gamer generation, there's nothing more provocative, political, or puerile about homosexuality in The Sims. It's simply no big deal. This may have been easier to swallow since The Sims had no on-screen sex. Later editions, such as The Sims Hot Date, introduced heavy petting. When the internet connected The Sims Online was released, the gay magazine The Advocate wrote down that the game had the potential to bust down anti-gay barriers all around the globe. When The Advocate asked one of the game designers about the inclusion, he responded that our decision was not to put artificial limits on behavior. We're here to make games, not push any moral agenda, so allowing gay Sims seemed like a no-brainer. The first major moment in online gay gaming didn't happen with the Sims people, however, but among elves and orcs. While The Sims Online came and went, 100 players gathered in a major virtual city, put on their digital pink shirts, and staged the first virtual gay pride parade in World of Warcraft, the largest massive multiplayer online role-playing game, MMORPG. The parade was prompted by Sarah Andrews, a transgender woman from Nashville. She wanted to create an LGBT-friendly, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender club within the World of Warcraft universe. Anti-gay slurs tended to fly faster under the anonymity of a computer screen. It was not unusual for established virtual worlds to have gay-friendly cliques for camaraderie playing. World of Warcraft developer Blizzard Entertainment told Andrews she couldn't create the club, and if she used the LGBT acronym within the game, her World of Warcraft account would be canceled. In a later statement, Blizzard said its goal was to, quote, promote a positive game environment for everyone and help prevent harassment from taking place. Lambda Legal Defense, America's biggest LGBT rights organization, joined Sarah's cause. Lambda announced a potential lawsuit. World of Warcraft players organized a gay pride parade, and Blizzard retracted its decision all in about 3 weeks. In the first 2 years, more than 6 million players joined World of Warcraft, and in those 700 days, Blizzard's duty switched from providing fresh dungeons and monsters to managing the social dynamics of a world more popular than Los Angeles. After the Pink Parade, the legal threat, and the bad press, Blizzard Entertainment called the club rejection a misunderstanding and said it would give more sensitivity training to the online game managers, the modern-day dungeon masters, monitoring the everyday happenings of the virtual world. Talking to the San Francisco Bay Times, a Blizzard spokesperson told people not to expect a miracle. We can't do everything, she said. It's a very big world.